Hi, everyone. It's Nadia, and welcome back to Biohacking Autism. Today, we're talking about data and tracking. And I want to start with an analogy that finally helped me reframe this whole idea. Imagine a pilot flying a plane with no gauges, no altitude, no speed, no fuel levels, or even imagine a CEO running a company without knowing sales data, expenses, employee performance. That's what most of us are doing when we're trying to manage our health or our children's health. So without data isn't just about like obsessing. Data is about clarity. And clarity changes everything. So here's the first step in taking charge of your health by collecting and organizing data. Okay. The very first step in taking charge of your health and your family's health is collecting and organizing data. Not all at once, not perfectly, just very intentionally. Health data really falls into two big categories: passive data, which is automatically collected, and active data, which are things that we log or gather ourselves. And when you combine both, you finally start seeing patterns instead of just pure chaos. So let's talk about passive data. Passive data is mainly collected with wearables or sensors. It's collected without effort, right? Passive data is collected without effort. This is where wearables and sensors come in. Things like your heart rate, HRV, the heart rate variability, sleep stages, number of steps, and also workouts, recovery, stress load. So for our family, this looks different for each person. What I use the Aura and the Whoop. And I personally wear both of them. And I know people always ask me why. And the reason is simple. Of course, I'm always testing things. So that's part of the reason why. But each device gives me a different perspective. Aura is phenomenal for sleep and HRV, heart rate variability, recovery, and overall readiness. So HRV, again, the heart rate variability, is probably the single most important metric for your nervous system, mental health, and stress resilience. Now, the Whoop is incredible for workouts, for strain, recovery from exercise. So I lift weights, I walk, I hike, I do yoga, and the Whoop tracks all of that really beautifully. Plus, wearing a ring while lifting weights can be very uncomfortable and frankly even painful. So the Whoop fills that gap. I can still wear it while I'm lifting weights. Now, Jimmy wears an Apple Watch and he's currently wearing the Apple Watch mostly because he's participating in a fitness project that requires it. All of his passive data feeds into Apple Health, which is exactly where I want it for this project he's working on. More on that very soon. So, the rule of wearables, people always ask me, like I said, what's the best wearable? And my answer is always the same. The best wearable is the one you'll actually wear. If you hate it, don't trust it, or find it uncomfortable, then it's useless. Now, the central hub for all of this data that we're going to be talking about is, in our case, Apple Health. And it's really important because for our family, like I said, Apple Health is the central database. So Whoop syncs into Apple Health, Apple Watch syncs into Apple Health, iPhone data goes into Apple Health, and some data even flows back out from Apple Health into other apps. So if one night I forgot, say, to wear my Oura ring, but wear my Whoop, well, my sleep still gets captured, and Apple Health becomes the single source of truth for this passive data. So don't forget also that your phone is tracking you as well passively. So your phone is already collecting data like steps and screen time, and you can add apps that track things like air quality, allergens, pollution. So you're already collecting a massive, massive amount of data. We're just now going to be organizing it, right? Um, Now, adding a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor, let's talk about CGMs because this is one of the most powerful tools that I've used. A CGM, constant glucose monitor, it tracks your blood sugar in real time all day long, right? And it's a sensor that you wear usually on your upper arm, and it stays there for like 10 days to 2 weeks, and it's huge because glucose spikes can drive anxiety, and blood sugar crashes can affect mood and energy, and glucose instability impacts your sleep as well. So inflammation and insulin resistance don't always show up in the labs right away. For me, CGMs really helped me to see which foods spike my glucose, understand why certain meals made me anxious or tired, and fine tune meal timing. It also helped me support my metabolic and hormonal health. So, for families with autism, CGMs can be incredibly helpful in understanding behavioral changes and irritability and energy crashes, sleep disruptions. Even short term use can teach you a lot. So I usually do a 10-day stint for each family member a few times per year, usually a couple times per year for prevention. But if I feel that we are having glucose or insulin issues or metabolic issues, I'll have someone in my family wear the CGM longer until the data makes sense, right? So if the data is kind of all over the place, we'll need to wear it more longer so we can finally understand the correlations and the patterns. All right, so now let's talk about active data, labs, records, and logs, right? So active data is the stuff that you gather yourself, and this includes blood work, imaging, visit summaries, surgeries, diagnoses, timelines. So most of this data already exists, right? It's just scattered everywhere. So the very first step is just collect everything. Log into your doctor's patient portals or the EHRs. And most of us have access to a few of them since we have different doctors, primary specialists. Log into LabCorp and Quest's patient portals, and also your imaging centers, and download all the old labs and the visit summaries, imaging reports, raw genetic data from sites like 23andMe. You're legally entitled, by the way, to all of it. So get a hold of it and store it locally. So once you've collected all this data, this is where things start feeling more empowering, right? Because now you can organize it. So I recommend organizing it in Google Drive, or another cloud storage, but I personally use Google Drive. So what I do is that I have a main folder for each family member, and then subfolders by year for each family member. And then also, very important, when you rename the files, use a simple system, something like date dash lab provider dash doctor dash patient. For example, I don't know, December 6, 2023 dash LabCorp dash endocrinology dash Jimmy. This makes everything searchable and very easy to scan. And then the last step would be to create some sort of a master spreadsheet. And this is one of the most powerful things you can do. So for each family member, create one spreadsheet that tracks labs over time. So columns in that spreadsheet will have things like the date, the test name, the value, right, of that specific test, and the reference range. And any notes that you can keep there are also super helpful. This really matters because you can see trends over the years. You can spot outliers. You can show your doctor the real context. Doctors, by the way, love this. You're making their job easier because this doesn't exist at all. They literally have to go through the labs page by page, and it's very hard to get all of the data in like one spot. Another type of active data is subjective data, behaviors and symptoms. So this part really matters, especially for autism families. So I recommend a simple note on your iPhone, and then the log would be the date and a brief description, a clear maybe severity scale of behaviors, 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And also log supplement changes, dose changes, medication changes. Nothing fancy, just very consistent. And just log any change, any event that happens. This is really cool because now we can use AI to connect it all, right? Here's where things get super exciting. Once you have wearable data, lab spreadsheets, symptom logs, you can feed this into AI tools like ChatGPT to identify patterns. You can correlate supplements with behaviors. You can link labs with symptoms and create smarter questions for your doctor. This turns data into actionable insights. So why people avoid data and why you really don't have to. Most people avoid tracking because it just feels overwhelming. They think they'll mess it up. They assume doctors already do this. They don't. The truth is, you already have the data. You're just organizing it. And once you do, you're no longer guessing. So, in closing, I would like for you to take charge of your health. That doesn't mean becoming your own doctor. It just means showing up informed and seeing patterns and making better decisions and partnering more effectively with your care team because now you have the information. You become the pilot with the gauges. You become the historian of your family's health. One device, start very small, right? So one device, one folder, one spreadsheet, and I promise you this work pays off in clarity, confidence, and better outcomes. And if you found this helpful, please share this episode with another parent or caregiver who needs simple wins. Thanks for listening to Biohacking Autism, and I'll see you in the next episode.